Welcome to the United Stand. It's Friday Night Live, which means it's a bit of a chill out. So it's the end of the week. We will be taking a lot of your questions, but the bitterness, the obsession, it's all started. Manchester United win one game. They all come out the woodwork. They can't stand it. They start criticising things that don't exist. And we're going to start off with Sky Sports pundit, Arsenal, ex-Arsenal star. Not Paul Merson. That was him last week having a pop at Harry Maguire. We've got the second leg this week. Charlie Nicholas. He was trending on Twitter this afternoon, which is why I saw it. And basically, just to read a capture of some of his quotes. I thought Harry Maguire was average. He did everything that was asked of him. Okay, so he was average, but he did everything that was asked of him. Okay. He was efficient, but I don't want to hear nonsense about him being a leader and strong. It's too soon. Right, okay, he's not just fallen off a Christmas tree, Charlie. He's actually been playing as England's centre-back and Leicester's centre-back for the last couple of years and is considered to be one of the best Premier League centre-backs with leadership and strong capabilities. So, look, I don't know whether Charlie just thinks Harry Maguire was just invented in the summer, but there you go. He also says, I'm still suspect about left back and right back. Chelsea could have scored 2. Well, look, let's stick with Harry Maguire for a moment, because what I would say about Arsenal fans is they talk so much crap. It's like they've got a sleeping bag in their bowels. It's like they reside there. And I just don't... there's just no need for it. There's absolutely no need to go in on Manchester United after they've won a game 4-0 and not conceded any goals. It just comes across as ridiculously bitter. And you know, I love the Soccer Saturday panel, we all do, but it's almost like they say it for an effect. There's absolutely no reason for it. Harry Maguire. And what I would say is look, Manchester United fans, if Arsenal fans don't get this, or Arsenal pundits don't get it, or Charlie Nicholas doesn't get it, or Paul Merson doesn't get it, your opinion on Manchester United just makes you look foolish, because Manchester United fans laugh at it. When you have a pop at Harry Maguire and said, "Oh, don't talk to me about this leadership and strong," he was just average, blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter, because we've had 6 years of the Chuckle Brothers. So, you know what? You could put a bloody train conductor at centre-back and they'd be a better leader than those two. So, Harry Maguire, England's best centre-back and leader for Leicester at the back, of course we're over the moon with him. And to be honest with you, you may not think he is much of a leader. He is, but you're not taking into account the situation Manchester United have been in for 6 years and how very happy we are with Harry Maguire. I agree it's early days, and I think there's an element of this that I do want to say in a moment, but there's still a couple of quotes to get through. Mark, please wish my son Quintus a happy birthday, says Jeff Hepner. Happy birthday to Quintus. I've got to go that back. Happy birthday to Quintus. Happy birthday, Quintus. I got it out in the end. And Mark Maguire has not proved it at highest level. He played pub teams in the World Cup. He is good, but it's early, says Zayn Mayassi. But I know you're an Arsenal fan as well. So you've just absolutely proved my point there. Arsenal fans, why are you bothered? Why are you bothered? I could come up with 100 jokes about Sideshow Bob that you've just signed at the back. He is an absolute clown. If he wasn't Brazilian, he'd be Phil Jones with a stupid haircut. But I don't, because actually I think David Luiz improves your backline. I think Nicola Pepe is a good signing. I think Kieran Tierney is a good signing. And I think the Real Madrid player that you've got on loan is a good signing. I think you'll just mess up because you're Arsenal. But I don't need to start obsessing about your new signings straight away. Harry Maguire had a very good game against Chelsea. We conceded no goals. I wasn't impressed. He's no leader. Look, it's just, what are you on about? What are you on about? But there was more. There was more from Charlie. He didn't stop there. He was on a roll. I'm still suspect about the left back and right back positions at Manchester United. Chelsea could have scored 2. You're a pundit for Sky Sports. You probably paid very, very well. You were a decent player in your time, Charlie. Do you actually watch football games, or do you just wake up in the morning with an obsession for Manchester United and start talking the nonsense? Because we tell you, Manchester United fans, right, left back, right. Wan-Bissaka is the best defensive right back in the league. So your concerns, you can go and sing about them and nobody will listen. The reality is Manchester United did concede a couple of chances from the left back position and the right back position. But if you actually watch the game, you would know why. Because United's right winger and left winger, they kept interchanging or they left their responsibilities. So Luke Shaw and Wan-Bissaka got doubled up on a few times, which is why Chelsea got in. Because most top-class fullbacks will come unstuck when they've got a 2v1 situation. That's why against Chelsea, our fullbacks did struggle a little bit, but still both had good games. The best of the lot though, This is from Charlie Nicholas. I've not made this up. I'm not convinced about United and I'd still sell Paul Pogba. Right? That is the most naive comment. And we're going to be talking about Paul Pogba because he's liked to post on Instagram, which has sent some people into meltdown. But let me just read this back. I'm not convinced about United and I'd still sell Paul Pogba. That's from Charlie Nicholas. That's like saying, I'm not convinced starvation will kill you. I'm still not going to eat. Like, you take United and Pogba apart and we're going to die. I'd still sell Paul Pogba. Of course you bloody will as an Arsenal fan, because our midfield will be no better than Burnley's and we'll probably get relegated without Pogba. This makes me laugh. Oh, I'd still sell Paul Pogba. And I actually had somebody today saying to me, quoting what I said around June. I said it, and I've got it written down here. It's a small club mentality to keep a player here that doesn't want to be here. And I'm now saying we've got to keep Paul Pogba. But people don't contextualise things. It's not ideal if Pogba wants to leave United. And I do believe it is a small club mentality to keep a player that doesn't want to be here. I stand by that statement. But do you want me to say in August, when we can't sign any more players, well, I'd rather we sold Paul Pogba because it's a small club mentality to keep him? We're not in a position where we have no choice now. I think people need to get this into their heads. Look, maybe Paul Pogba doesn't want to be here. Maybe he feels like he's a prisoner. Who knows? But we can't replace him. So I don't care if he's crying into his millions every night because he doesn't want to be at United. We've got to keep him. It's not about United fans' morals here. You know, morally, I don't like keeping players that don't really want to be here. But we're in the hands of the board again. And the board have played a silly game again. And the board have said, you're not going anywhere. And they are keeping a player who doesn't want to be here, but probably against his will. But they haven't bought any midfielders. They haven't replaced Herrera. We cannot sell Paul Pogba. If we sell Paul Pogba before September, our season's over. It's over. There's nothing in the midfield. McTominay, Matic, Pereira, Fred and James Garner. Burnley's got a better midfield. So we can't sell Paul Pogba. So what is Charlie Nicholas on about? I'd still sell Paul Pogba. That can only be a biased Arsenal fan just hoping we're going to fail. John Paul McClevey says, stop talking bullcrap all the time. You're winding me up, mate. Well, mate, I'm just repeating what's in the press. The veteran trainer 88 says, as an American fan of United, I'm obviously removed from the team and the main fan base. This channel has brought me closer. Thank you, Mark and the United stand. Thank you, mate. Nick P says, Mark, I think there's just too much time between games at this part of the season. Idiots will form opinions because they can't keep their mouths shut. I think there's something in that, Nick P. But also, you know, I think I did a video on That's Football this afternoon because I do Premier League preview on there on a Friday. And I basically said, and if you didn't watch it on here, then you won't know what I said. I basically said that I think Anthony Marcial will score more goals than Aubameyang. And I know a lot of you are going to say, you're mad. You're absolutely mad. But I don't forge opinions to be controversial. This is Anthony Marcial at number 9. Anthony Marcial through the middle. Anthony Marcial hopefully playing every week. Anthony Marcial, clinical finisher. I believe that Anthony Marcial can get 20 goals in the Premier League this season. And if he does that, there's a chance that he will get more goals than Aubameyang. And, you know, that's the challenge that we've got to set down as United fans. But Arsenal fans just start quoting nonsense because they can't deal with the debate. They're so obsessed. Braden, not all of them, but you know who I'm on about. Braden Barnett says, if Maguire signed for City, it would be hailed as the best signing ever from pundits. Paul Ince's comments about us copying Liverpool as well. I'll come on to that one. I'm glad you reminded me of that because we want to take some of your questions. Andrew Chow, Mark, why do you think there is a media agenda against us in recent times? Is it because of our demise over the last few years when before we were good? I actually embrace the comments of Charlie Nicholas. They embrace the comments of Paul Ince. I feel... If you remember when United was successful, we were always targeted by the press. So if they're starting to do that, then that's good. What I didn't like over the last few years is when Liverpool, media, whatever, pundits, Arsenal, Sky, BT, when they're sympathetic. That's when you know you're in trouble. Mark, read between the lines. He's worried about United, hence the bitter comments. We're in his head for free, says Chloe Jenkins. She's hit the nail on the head. And the Booknut fan says, just bought 2 authentic jerseys yesterday, the Umbro 98-0 and my favourite jersey of all time, and the 2002 Nike Vodafone jersey. Debating on buying this year's third kit. Your thoughts on it, Mark? Are you getting it? Says the Booknut fan. I do like the new Manchester United third kit, by the way. I do like it. But I don't know whether I'll be out going to buy it, to be honest with you. But what I want to just say there is about Pep Guardiola himself said that they didn't go for Maguire because they couldn't afford what United were going to play. but he's a top-class centre-back. So, yeah, there is an element of bitterness there. As for, and I want to talk about Pogba because I know a lot of people are talking about that in a moment, but as for Paul Ince coming out and saying United are copying Liverpool's way, again, I did a video on That's Football a year ago. Go back and watch it. And I basically said, Jurgen Klopp, with all due respect, is copying the United way under Sir Alex Ferguson. So if we are now copying Liverpool, that shows you how thick Paul Ince is, that he doesn't actually look back. I mean, again, I just think a lot of these pundits, they're competing with each other to be the next Peter Crouch or Robbie Savage. You know, these people who've got a bit of wit and they're quite out there. Like Chris Sutton was terrible for it last year. And I think Paul Ince started doing it around Christmas time and he's got a bit of notoriety out of it. And it's now like all these pundits, you know, you were ex-professional footballers. Tell us about being a professional footballer and stop trying to, you know, just be controversial for controversial's sake. You're telling me Paul Ince, who played in the Sir Alex Ferguson Manchester United side, is legitimately coming out and saying Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is copying Liverpool, when it's very, very clear, and I don't mind if we copy the Liverpool way, by the way, because Liverpool have actually done very well. They've got a mix of British players, they've brought well from abroad, they're playing a good brand of football that befits their club's history, it's exciting, all the players are running around for the badge, there's a high intensity. But you know what? I've just described Manchester United 10, 20 years ago. Klopp has followed the United way, I believe, because he's got in, like, he's got his two British fullbacks, he's got Henderson who's British, Milner, he's got some really good British talent there, he's brought well from the Premier League with Van Dijk, they use the width very, very well with those fullbacks, bombing up and down the pitch, sounds like United, doesn't it? There's a high intensity, there's a passion, they play the way that the fans want them to play, it's exciting. I think Klopp probably looked at the way Sir Alex did it and thought, you know, I can do that in a modern way. And if United are looking at that, we're not looking at Liverpool. We've got a manager who played under Sir Alex and is doing it that way. Paul Ince is just off his head, absolutely off his head, because we're doing it the United way and we did it first. And that's not taking anything away from Liverpool because they've got every right to do it and adjust it the way they have. But yeah, so it's a really weird comment. Marcial has never been a clinical scorer. Aubameyang is. That's why you wanted to buy him, says Zayn Mayasi. Zayn, you're an Arsenal fan just contributing on a United channel. Get on to Robbie and get him to do some live shows that you can get involved with as an Arsenal fan. Your arguments about Aubameyang are irrelevant to me. I said this afternoon, I like Aubameyang. I wanted Aubameyang to come to Manchester United. But don't tell me that Anthony Martial's not a clinical finisher. He's the best finisher we've got in the club. He's just been playing on the left wing. I think he's going to get 20 goals this season. Come back in May. Javonte Bain says, what's your opinion on Fred and McTominay playing DM and Pogba playing 10 against Wolves? Dalot to play on the right-hand side instead of Lingard as well. I think you're mad, Javonte. I think you're mad. I think it's a good comment, but I think you're absolutely mad because, and I say that in the best possible way, you've just made two big changes there. You've brought Dalot and Fred, who aren't even in the matchday squad against Chelsea. I can't see Ollie doing that. I can't see Ollie removing two people from that matchday winning squad against Chelsea to bring in Fred and Dalot. I think Fred, Dalot, Sanchez will do very well to make the bench and probably shouldn't make the bench. But you know what? Tactically, it might not be a bad idea, but I just don't see it happening. Nick P says, Mark, 4 months ago we had a spine made of Jelly Jones, Smalling, Matic, Lukaku. I remember making a comment about it. Ollie seems to read our minds. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is in tune with the United fan base. I'm not saying he's watching or listening or anything like that. I just think whether you watch the United stand, whether you read fanzines, whether you just don't talk to football about anything but you're a United fan, if you got us all together without listening to anything, we'd all say the same sort of things. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is just in tune with what United fans want because they know what's best for the club. Newland Paul says, Ince has been very critical about Ole. He's got something against Ole. He has been criticising him since his appointment. Some old bitterness there, I think. Yeah, you know, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're spot on with that. We'll come back to your questions. We might get some questions from this. I want to talk about Paul Pogba. If you have not watched the video this afternoon, obviously Noureddin, Said and Aaron are back with their United talk. I really enjoy that on a Friday afternoon. Good lads from the fan cams, and they're obviously, you know, waxing lyrical about Pogba. Aaron's a big fan of Pogba, and even Aaron said in June that Pogba should leave, and I think he was very similar to what I said, which was the relationship had sort of run its course. I think Pogba 3 years, it was time to move on. United decided, no, you're not moving on. That's the situation. His brothers come out and said that you know, basically that he still wants to leave, but it's difficult, but we'll see what happens. Zidane was asked about it today, and he said, look, I'm happy with the players that we want, and Paul Pogba's a United player at the moment. At least that's a little bit more respectful. But then this afternoon, I think it was, Paul Pogba has posted an image on his Instagram story of his brother's interview, where those quotes have come from. And people are just saying, oh, he's just posting a picture of his brother, Mark. And I'm like, oh my God. You know, if somebody was sleeping with your wife and you caught them, what would you say? He was just giving him a back massage, or her. You know, Paul Pogba has actually, to be honest with you, depending on how you read it, that is quite bad from Pogba, isn't it? You know, posting a picture of your brother and it's actually a picture of his brother at the interview studio talking about Pogba wanting to leave. That's I mean, that is disappointing, and to be honest with you, I read it that way. If you read it another way, that's fine. I'm certainly not here to have a pop at Paul Pogba, as you're about to find out. But I do read that Instagram post. If you're putting an Instagram post of your brother doing an interview, and it's actually a picture of him doing the interview, saying that you want to leave Manchester United, you're either very thick or you're trying to be clever. And I think Pogba is just conveying the fact that he wants to leave. But we can't let you go, Paul. And you showed against Chelsea that, you know, you're not down in tools, you're professional, you're going to fight for the United shirt, and we can't let you go. In June, mate, we should have been, look, to be honest with you, we probably should let him go. We should have let him go, sorry, we can't now. We can't replace him now, so we can't let him go. That's the end of the conversation. We cannot let him go. If this board sells Paul Pogba, I'm going to go off on one, and I'm sure all you are, because we're done. We're done. If we lose Paul Pogba, we are done this season. We didn't replace Herrera. We didn't bring any other midfielders in, and then you're going to let Pogba go as well. We just can't do it. It scares me that this board might do it because they're so incompetent, but they can't do it. He can't be sold. And I do sympathise with Pogba a little bit, because maybe we should have sold him in June, and then maybe we should have bought two midfielders. You know what? That's probably better, because Pogba clearly wants to go. So how is it a rebuild when Pogba wants to go? He's only here for a year. But that's the situation we're in. And as United fans, and you can throw up quotes from June where people were saying, get rid of him, we don't want him at our club, or it's a weak mentality to keep a player that doesn't want to be here. Throw those quotes as much as you like, because I've got one thing to say. What would you do if it was your club and you can't replace him? You've got to keep him. We've got to keep him. And I think, yeah, maybe it is bad management from the board. Pogba's made it very clear that he wants to go in June, and he's just gone and done it again, in my opinion, by posting that. But we need him. We need him. And we are a small club mentality, because we've put ourselves in a position where a player clearly doesn't want to be here, and we are going to make him stay. And that is a small club mentality. But I think that the board acts small club mentality. So why should we pretend that we don't? I think we act like a small club. You know, we've made Paul Pogba basically pivotal to our season. You know, it should never be in a position like that. We said it about Mourinho. It's Manchester United, not Mourinho United. And we've put Pogba in that situation. And I sympathise with Pogba, but we cannot sell him. And him dropping hints is disappointing. But what's Solskjaer going to do? So I heard somebody say today, that's totally undermined Solskjaer, what Pogba's done. And Solskjaer needs to act. How's he going to act? By dropping Pogba and playing Matic and losing against Wolves. He can only do what he's got to do. And if Ollie's a part of it, then Ollie's naive, but I don't necessarily think he is. I think United should have sold Pogba and brought two midfielders, and we didn't. Now we can't let him go. And that's the situation. And I think the sooner September the 2nd comes, the better, because he can't be sold then. But we can't sell him. I'm not going to get angry with Paul Pogba. I'm not. There's no point. Because what's your anger against Paul Pogba going to do? We cannot let him go. It's just a stupidly moral argument to let him go, because we haven't got the quality if he goes, and we can't replace him. So it is what it is. But yeah, I've always felt that Pogba wanted to go, and I think it just backs up the fact that he does, and he's dropping more and more hints. But United better know what they're doing. We can't let him go. What would you change for Wolves, says Metal Music Reviews? Well, I've done my preview. I wouldn't change a lot, to be totally honest with you. I'd keep it much the same. Welcome to Richard Stevenson, the latest member of the United Stand Members Club. I wouldn't change a lot. I wouldn't change a lot against Wolves. I'd probably go 3-5-2 and bring Twansibi in, put Pereira on the bench and go three at the back. That's about it. It's down to Woodward, Mark, says Michael Jones. Yes, I do. I do have a level of sympathy for Pogba as well. At the end of the day, he's been here 3 years. The first summer he came in, we were in the Europa League, and it was all about a project. 3 years later, we're back in the Europa League and we're about a project again. He's in his mid-20s, a World Cup winner, wants to be in the Champions League, wants to go to a big club like Real Madrid. I can't knock him for that. We haven't provided him the platform that we should have done. He's one of the world's best midfielders. So him wanting to go, I totally understand. United saying they want to keep him, I think that was a bad choice when there was time to replace him. But now we've got to keep him. And I tell you what, it's not even worth talking about. We just cannot let him go. Yes, it's a bit small club mentality, I agree. But we can't let him go. We can't. You should sell him, says Dean Richardson. But why? Why should we sell him? We've got a chance of getting fourth place if Pogba stays and plays well. If Pogba goes, we will be struggling to finish in 6th or 7th. Like, we really will. That midfield isn't good enough. It's not good enough. Simple as that. Serious question here, Mark, says the Booknut fan. Lukaku is gone. How are we going to use the Timberland boot emoji now? My arse off. We need to get rid of it, don't we? We need to get rid of it because Lukaku is gone, like I say. We've got a couple more. We've got a couple coming up for you on Monday, actually. Gamanai Namushi says, I think Pogba is the only guy in our midfield, and I think you're right. Absolutely. Paul Robinson says Paul's gone next year, 100%. The only thing I would say about that, Paul, is that my feeling was that we've basically said to Pogba, give us one good year, and then you can go to Real Madrid like we did with Ronaldo. But Ronaldo, when that decision had been made, wasn't going on about going to Real Madrid still. Like, Pogba today has dropped another hint that he wants to go, and the transfer window is still open. So in his head, it doesn't feel to me like Pogba has got his head around the fact that he's here for another year. In his head, it's obvious that he thinks he might still be able to get a move. That's dangerous. That is dangerous. Welcome to Sean O'Sullivan, the latest member of the United Stand Members Club. And Josh Williams says, what if no one gives us the right offer for Pogba? Doesn't seem like anyone's going to offer 150 million for him. But Josh and everybody at home, can I just ask this question? Because I'm putting my opinion across here and I'm not too sure whether anyone else agrees. Please do smash a like on the video while you're thinking as well. If Real Madrid come in next week after the Wolves game and say there's £150 million for Pogba, would you take it? Would you take it? Because I wouldn't. Because, as I said this morning, they could give us 400 million. I can't do anything with it. They could give us 10 million. I can't do anything with that money until January. And if we play without Pogba till January, we'll be in the mid-table anyway. Which means another season in the Europa League. We've got to keep Pogba. It's down to the board. I think they've messed it up, but we've got to do it. Wouldn't let Pogba go finally and hopefully open the board's eyes to how poor we are in midfield, says Ray Cowley. But the money still comes in for them though, doesn't it? Exactly. The person who said, what do you think about the new kit? It's a nice kit. How many people have bought it? Mugs. Absolute mugs. You've fallen into the trap, and I nearly have, because my daughter wants it and I've nearly bought it for her, and I probably will do for her birthday. Money in the Glazers' pocket. A nice new kit. People soon forget about the mess of the midfield because I've got the new kit and it looks good. They treat us like sheep because we are like sheep. We do the same things every year. Analytically, they'll go, new kit, guaranteed a few million. New kit, guaranteed a few million. Season tickets, they'll sell out easy, guaranteed a few million. We're still going to be on the telly, even if we're doing badly, guaranteed a few million. The revenue streams are still there. Iron Singh, United is as rich and great as Madrid, but players since Beckham days think that the Madrid is a step up. Why this mentality there just because of stupid weather? We are as good as Madrid. As a football club we are, Arjun, but as an actual entity competitively we're not, and that's because of how we're run. We're run by people who want to make money. Real Madrid are run by people who want to be successful as a football club. We're not a football club, we're a bank. We're run by bankers with a B. You could say W, but we are run by bankers. And Real Madrid and even Man City, with all their oil money, they want to win football matches. They want to be the best football team in the world. Manchester United don't want to be the best football team in the world. It's not the first priority. Ollie wants us to be the best football team in the world. The fans want us to be the best football team in the world. And the players we've got want us to be the best team in the world. But the players we've got aren't good enough to do it. And the board won't provide the money to do it. So you bang your head against the brick wall. That's the cold, harsh facts that people need to accept. Cesar Lopez says, Mark, side topic, did you see the comments by Januzaj saying he'd have gotten more chances if he was a big money signing? I feel he's bitter he wasn't able to take the chance he got while he was here. In relation to Adnan Januzaj, I can tell you the story about him in a couple of sentences. When he burst on the scene, he was nearly going to be out of contract, and he was messing around with other clubs, and we gave him a very good contract, I think a 5-year contract. The ability disappeared. He seemed to think he'd made it before he did. I remember Van Gaal giving him 4 games in a row in the first team and he didn't take the chance. I think he scored against Villa, but that was about it. He did it again the season after that. He went on loan and he just became a very average player. In fact, he went from being potentially one of our best up-and-coming players to just being yet another Kieran Richardson. And where has he gone since? And what is he doing in world football? He's just a bang average winger, and that's his own fault. You know, if he'd worked harder instead of thinking he'd made it, maybe he could have been a top player. But it's on his shoulders. I saw his career. Ricky916, I think it's great how people need to talk about United to stay relevant. I hear more Arsenal fans talk about United than their own club. I don't need to add anything more to that. I think you're spot on. What hint did Pogba drop? Says Stephen Bishai. So basically, Paul Pogba's brother has been doing interviews basically saying that Pogba wants to go to Real Madrid. He gave an interview with El Cinquecento TV, something like that. Paul Pogba has screenshotted his brother on that interview and put it out on Instagram. Why? Maybe it's just an innocent picture of his brother on the telly. Or maybe it's a subliminal message that, yes, I still want to go to Real Madrid. And I would imagine it's the second thing. But I don't get angry about it because Pogba said in June he wanted to go. And I still think Pogba wants to go. But, you know, sometimes you don't get what you want. And United have to need to stand by that because they haven't bought any replacements. There's news about the board thinking that Bruno Fernandes' quality was questionable. What do you think about that? Says Ashwin Singh. I spoke about it last night. There was basically something coming out yesterday about Bruno Fernandes saying that they'd scouted him, but they'd moved their interest away because he gives the ball away too much and he wouldn't suit our possession-based football. 2 things wrong with that story. He'd be perfect for our system because we don't play possession-based football. We play risk-taking, quick, intensity football. That's what Manchester United do. So I don't believe that story because it's more like it wouldn't fit in with Man City's possession-based football. We don't play possession-based football, as we've seen against Chelsea and in pre-season and the end of last season. Our possession stats are normally way lower than the opposition. He told his brother to say that, says Sam Brown. Well, a lot of people were saying about Pogba today, and I would agree with this. It's like when Pep said that he'd been offered Pogba, and Pogba never said anything. He just went shh after the game. Pogba could easily crunch all this down. He could just come out and say, look, I'm at United for this season. I'm happy here. It's shut down. But he won't do it because he doesn't want to be here. But he's going to be here because he cannot be sold. We cannot sell him. Keep your day job, Archie, says Randy Jackson. Do you think Pogba is just enjoying messing about with the media, says Baz79? No, because that would be a very irresponsible and tactless thing to do, wouldn't it? Because by messing around with the media, you are running the risk of alienating yourself from your Manchester United fan base. As I've seen on social media today, there's quite a bit of, anger towards Pogba brewing. But I don't think that anger's relevant because Pogba has got our season in his hands now because of this ineptitude from the board in the summer. They didn't buy any midfielders and that has left us totally dependent on Paul Pogba, a player who doesn't probably want to be here. That's how badly managed we are as a football club. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can come out with statements like last week and say the money was there for midfielders if we wanted them, but there wasn't anybody in the whole world of football that could come and play in our midfield. So we thought we'd go into the season weaker than we were and rely on a player that doesn't want to be here. It's just nonsense. Read between the lines. What actually happened this summer is United didn't want to spend a lot of money. And they didn't want to sell Paul Pogba because he's marketable. And basically, they've put their head in the sand and gone, la, 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 la. Don't care if we need a midfielder. Don't care if Pogba wants to go. La, la, la. If we just ignore the transfer window till it shuts, we'll be fine. That's how you run a big club, apparently. Don't grab the bull by the horns and just solve the problem. Just bury your head in the sand. Ray Cowley says, your top realistic January signings, if any. I did a video on it on Wednesday, and a lot of people weren't happy with it. I did a video on it, but a lot of people have been asking me about it, so I did a video on it. And I think midfielders, I think United are still very, very, very much after Sean Longstaff, which in a way is good, but in a way is disappointing, because again, it's about long-termism. Bruno Fernandes, for me, would still be the midfielder I would go for, but maybe Eriksen will be gone this month. Maybe Milinkovic-Savic, maybe he'll go this month. It's hard to say because I'm very much in the mindset that we've just got to go with what we've got and hope it's enough. Metal Music Review says that Pogba's fate is in his own hands. If he throws toys out the cot and downs tools, will Madrid still want him? He needs to show he deserves the fee. Paul Pogba desperately wants him. Desperately wants him. David Kwendu, thanks for the contribution. Keep chucking the questions in. Let me just get rid. I'm going to shout you out, the real Zlatan, because you're gone. I just saw a really good comment there. Since we're Brexit FC, I could see us going for someone like Jack Grealish or Lewis Cook, says R. Younggill 97. I mean, that Brexit FC thing's quite funny, isn't it? But actually, when you look at it, we only bought British in the summer. We only bought British, and we all thought that was a bit of a stupid myth, didn't we, when we were hearing that Ollie only wants to buy British? And then that's exactly what he's done. I hope that doesn't stay true, because it is very narrow-minded. It is very Brexit, isn't it? Oh, let's just buy British. Anup Ayapan says, how much do you think Rashford, Marcial and Greenwood would realistically score? Fernandes is not linked with any top club till now. Do you know why? Attitude problem. I think Sporting Lisbon want too much money for Bruno Fernandes. How many goals do I think Rashford and Marcial will score? I'm not going to put Greenwood into the equation, because I don't know how much game time Greenwood's going to get. But I would say Marcial and Rashford, they've got to get 35 goals between them, which is 17 each, isn't it? Which is still quite a considerable amount for two players that haven't really done that before. But I think this is the season that make or breaks both of them. And I think they have got a partnership that can work quite well. I want to see against Wolves a front two. I really do. Mark, if Pogba wants to go, they should sell him at a good price and cash. Winter window is not that far away. With his money, we can buy two great midfielders, says Pancracia G-Rec. Right. I appreciate the comment, mate, but can I just come back at that? Well, I can, because I'm in charge here. You'd sell Paul Pogba now for good money and then invest it in January. We aren't even out of August. We've got September, October, November, December. Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea. We've played Chelsea, Man City, Wolves, Leicester, Watford, Everton. Everybody we've got to play before we get to January, with a midfield consisting of Scott McTominay, who jury is still out. I don't care whether you call him McMahon or not. You've still got to say we don't know how he's going to end up. Pereira the same. Fred could still be a flop. Matic is a donkey. You think that midfield of those four players is going to make us compete till January? The season's over. If Pogba goes, it's done. Forget about it. It is done. We're a mint with a hole. I don't care what money Real Madrid throw about Paul Pogba. If we let him go, we're done. We're absolutely done. And it's the worst bit of business we've ever done. It'll be the worst summer we've ever done. Not buying any midfielders and then selling Pogba and letting Herrera go. That's a disgrace. You think back to January, the first 3 months of Ollie, that midfield three that worked really well, Pogba, Herrera and Matic. You speak to yourself back in January and say, hey, you know what's going to happen though, for all this good start under Ollie? You'll never guess what's going to happen by the start of next season. We'll sell Pogba and Herrera, our best two midfielders, and wait for it, this is the killer line, we won't replace them, and there's no one coming through. Great, isn't it? That's the scenario you're staring at. So we just can't let Pogba go. I'm disgusted that we let Herrera go and didn't replace him. We can't let Paul Pogba go. We cannot let him go. Berber Spin says our board probably think our backup midfielders are good after that PSG win. I loved the win over PSG, Berber Spin. I did. But don't ever tell me that we were in that game. If you played that game 10 times... we'd lose it 10 times. Well, obviously we wouldn't, because we won it one time. But you know what I mean? I think if we played it another 10 times, we would lose it every single time. It was just the perfect scenario for us. Everybody battled fantastically well, but we were not. It wasn't. We were. It reminded me of like Wimbledon, Liverpool in the FA Cup final in '88. It was just like the perfect storm to get a result. It wasn't convincing. It was just backs to the wall, hard graft, and then we took our chances, and PSG didn't. Selling Pogba would be worse than buying Sanchez, says Mr. Glenn Johnson. I agree. James Garner says Fairy Flamer. I mean, James Garner's playing for the reserve under 23s tonight. Like, it's not. And also, can I just say this? I'm not being critical of McTominay and Pereira and Fred. I'll always be critical of Matic because I don't rate him, or James Garner. But how fair is it to chuck these lads in when they've barely played 30 games between them for United and say you're our first choice midfielders now? That's how naive and poorly planned it would be. Would you swap Matic for Romu from the Saints, says Ray Cowley? I'd swap Matic for Mary Poppins. I would. Phil Miller says Garner just scored in the under-23s. Yeah. Don't judge players on the under-23s, please. Some of them can be good, some of them can be shit. I think James Garner's got a great future at United, but it's a very different thing. And I think Ollie said it himself, actually. Chucking a striker in at 17, 18 is very different to chucking an 18-year-old midfielder in. It's a totally different area of the pitch, obviously. But you don't get many, if you look through the history of the Premier League, there aren't many 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old midfielders that come into a top 6 side, establish themselves and play well. It's a massive ask for a midfielder to do that. The only one I can really think of, and there might be one or two others, is Fabregas. It's very difficult. But there's loads of 17, 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old strikers who've come in and been brilliant. There's not many midfielders, and there's a reason for that, because the midfield is the hardest place to play. It's fast-paced, it's physical. So Garner's going to be a good player for the future, I think, but I don't think you chuck him into a United midfield and expect to get top 6. And if we don't get top 6 because the board haven't bought midfielders, how's that Ollie's fault? That's the thing that irritates me the most. If we don't get top 6, top 4 this season, Ollie will be judged on that and it will go on his record. But the true story is that he didn't get the midfield he needed. PSG are notorious chokers, says Metal Music Reviews. They are. Prediction on where we will finish this season, says Tyler Edwards. I think building on the positivity of what we've had thus far, I think United could fight for 4th. But if we were to sell Paul Pogba, which I just can't see happening, we would be mid-table. If Pogba gets injured, we might be around 6th. And the same goes for if you get big injuries in defence or up front, we might struggle. We've got a very thin squad. Would you swap Matic for Lukaku, says Rebel Dog 8? No, keep Matic. Randy Jackson says we're clearly a top 4 mark. Clearly. I don't know. I don't think we are. I don't know what you're basing that on. We finished 6th last season. Just because we bought a couple of defenders, you think we're a top 4 side? The midfield is the engine room. The pressure is too high for a 17-year-old, says A. Andrews. Guendouzi, Willock and Dele, says hairline less. You've just named 3 banter midfielders there. I said good midfielders in the top 6 that have made a big difference for their team. I don't class Guendouzi, Willock and Dele as decent midfielders, to be honest with you. David Quendu, thanks for the contribution. Mr. Glenn Johnson, our young talent needs to be nurtured into the team, not thrown there because the board is too cheap to build a balanced squad. Development. Exactly. I mentioned Paddy McNair the other day. Confidence is massive in a youth player's career. If their confidence get knocked, a lot of these players end up done. You've got to nurture them. Class of 92, they were fantastic talents, but they came in with Roy Keane and Schmeichel and Steve Bruce and Cantona, and they were nurtured. We're chucking players in and saying, you've got to be the leader. It's not right. Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Why are people chucking banter names at me? What's Ruben Loftus-Cheek done? Like, you're just naming teenage midfielders. What did I say? Name me a midfielder that's like been 18, 19, 20 years of age, that's gone into a top 6 side and made a huge difference. Like, Ruben Loftus-Cheek hasn't made a huge difference to Chelsea. He's a good player, but he's got Kante with him. What you're saying is sell Paul Pogba and chuck James Garner in with McTominay and Pereira and Matic. They'd have to be the big player in the team. There's no player in the Premier League history that's been chucked into a top 6 side and been the focal point of that midfield, the best midfielder, and hit the ground running. It's so difficult to do. And as I said, even Fabregas didn't do it. I would imagine when Fabregas came into that Arsenal midfield, he probably still had Vieira with him or someone like that. So you got that previous comment spot on. It's all right playing young midfielders. It's very rare that it works when they're young, but even more so, they've got to have quality with them. And we wouldn't have any quality if Pogba went. Greg Hempsel says, Henderson, lifting Champions League shows individual quality isn't necessarily the most important thing, but being a team. Ollie's on track to do that. Have patience. Yeah, but Greg, you've moved the conversation totally away from what we're talking about there. Thanks for the contribution, and I do agree with you. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about togetherness and everything like that. We're talking about if Paul Pogba leaves, our midfield will be mid-table. That's what we're saying. The board cannot let him go. Ayupan, whole summer we were expecting Arsenal to just have a bad summer with a 50 million budget, but the difference between us and United was Arsenal went for director and football, and now they're optimistic. Hope we learn and search for one. And Greg Hempsell, well said, says irrelevant. No, Greg made a good point. It just wasn't relevant to what we were talking about. Gerard, Phil MU FC. I don't know how old Gerard was when he started, but I mean, Gerard's a good player. I'm not going to knock that, but you know, again, Gerard would have come into a team that had some experience around him, even though Liverpool didn't win titles. A lot of people are saying Dele Alli. I don't know whether we've just got Spurs players today, but I'm not going to buy it. Tell me when Spurs have been a relevant team with Dele Alli in the midfield. I mean, Dele Alli's not even as good as Jesse Lingard for a start. I ain't talking about Dele Alli on a United Stand stream. He's a banter midfielder. He's absolute shite. I just don't get... Dele Alli's one of those players where you just go, why does he get all the hype? Every time I watch him, and I'm watching him tomorrow on the watch-along on That's Football, Spurs versus Man City. And I won't be watching him because he's injured, actually. I just do not get it with Dele Alli. I thought he had one good season and then he's been bang average afterwards. Anyway, thanks everybody. Please do smash a like on the video. Make sure you're subscribing if you're new. Bottom right hand corner. We're only 3 away from 535,300. Really enjoyed the questioning and everything like that. Reminder, link in the video description. An evening with Ryan Giggs and the United Stand. Tickets are available. Link in the video description. It will be this sort of a show actually where we're interacting and everything like that. So if you want to get yourself down there, meet the United Stand boys and Ryan Giggs. The link's in the video description for that. It's Friday night, so get on it. Thanks everyone for watching. Back again tomorrow. Lots of content on the channel today. We've had the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer press conference reaction. We had the United talk with the boys. Really enjoyed the show. Laid back Friday as we call it. Thanks everyone for watching. Paul Scholes wasn't 18 when he came into the midfield. Roy Keane wasn't 18 when he came into the midfield. You're just chucking names out now. And somebody's just said Jack Wilshere. Yeah, that went well. That went really well. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all soon.